The night this whole thing started, I was working the floor at the Silver Crown Hotel in Crestmont. Black shoes too tight, name tag. A little crooked, the kind of shift where your feet go numb and your brain keeps counting tips. Like that'll fix anything. I needed exactly $1,000 by Friday, or the pharmacy would stop filling my mom's oxygen meds. 1,000 might as well have been a million. Until the guy in the charcoal suit looked up from his glass and caught me watching the room the way hungry people watch a bakery window. He was Marcus Hale. Yeah, that Marcus Tech Legend magazine covers the smiles rarely buys companies often type. People hovered around him like moths around a porch light. He waved them off with a polite nod, and out of nowhere, when the gala wound down and I was counting crumpled bills at a lonely table, he came over and said, "You worked the whole night for that." His voice was calm, like he was asking the time. "It's more than some nights," I said, and tucked the money deeper into my apron. He glanced toward the dark hallway, then back at me. "Come upstairs. One night. I'll give you 1,000. No pressure." My throat closed up. The exact number I needed, like he'd reached in and read my thoughts. I wanted to say no to be the kind of person who always says no, but the oxygen machine at home hissed in my head. I agreed. Not proudly, not even bravely. Just, honestly, the way you agree to hold your breath under cold water when someone says it won't be long. We rode the elevator in silence. The suite looked like a magazine white walls glass-stocked bar. I stood by the door with my hands shaking and said barely above a whisper, "There's something I should tell you." I told him I'd never done this before. I watched his face go from smooth to human like a mask setting down on a table. He set his drink aside, took a breath, and asked me the only question I didn't expect. "Are you sure you want this?" No one in my life had asked me that ever. Teachers, landlords, managers, bill collectors. Choices were for people with time. I nodded. "I don't really have a choice." He looked like that hurt him a little. He moved slower after that careful quiet. I left before sunrise. No note, no look back. I left the envelope with the cash on the table because if I took it, I was afraid the thing I did would own me. I walked into the morning air, and the city felt colder than usual, like it was waiting for me to break. Here's the thing about pretending you're fine. You get good at it. I made coffee at the diner. I smiled at truckers. I paid attention to the sound of the door, so I didn't think about the suite. By midnight, I was mopping when the manager shouted, "Close up right," and I felt my life shrink to the size of that bucket. I caught the last bus, walked the last block in the drizzle, and opened our apartment door to the silence of an old building that coughs in its sleep. On the table sat the same envelope. Inside 1,500, not 1,000, and a note in neat handwriting. Not charity, not payment, just what's owed. M. My mom dozed on the couch, a soft wheeze under the blanket. On the coffee table, a pharmacy bag, and this detail still gets me cinnamon applesauce. She loved it as a kid. A man came by, she murmured when I touched her hand. Said he was an old friend. Brought the medicine. She smiled like she could taste that applesauce already. I sat with the envelope and felt the tight knot inside me loosen just enough that breathing didn't feel like work. I told myself that would be the end one strange night, one stranger's kindness, a story I'd never admit out loud. Except Marcus didn't vanish. 3 days later, while I was refilling salt shakers, a shadow fell over the booth in the corner. He wore jeans and a sweater looked smaller somehow, like he'd turned down the volume on his life. "I heard the espresso here is tragic," he said, and smiled with the left side of his mouth. "You heard right." I deadpanned, then poured him a cup anyway. He took a sip, winced, and nodded like he deserved it. That's how it began. Less like a rescue, more like an apology, said with actions. He brought groceries, sometimes not flashy stuff, just what we actually ate. He swapped out my mom's clunky inhaler for a better model. He brought sunflowers because she said they reminded her of summers before the factories closed. Once he brought a 1,000-piece puzzle and sat on our floor suits, sleeves rolled to the elbow, hunting for all the edge pieces like it was an executive decision. Trust is slow, like turning a ship in a narrow channel. You don't even realize you've changed course until the shore looks different. One night I was chopping garlic badly okay, and he reached for the knife. "You hold it like a lightsaber," I teased. "I build platforms," he said, pretending to be wounded, "not salad." "Menace," I said. He laughed. Really laughed, and for a second the room felt lighter than our rent due dates and clinic receipts. Then I remembered the night, the envelope, the imbalance, and I said, arms crossed, "Am I your project? Your conscience cleansed before Q4. His smile vanished. He leaned on the counter, looked me in the eye. "I don't know what you are to me yet. I just know when I'm here, I feel like a person and not a headline." Silence can be cruel. That one wasn't. We held it like a fragile thing between us. There were bumps. A socialite with the kind of diamond that has its own zip code cornered me outside the diner one afternoon, eyes sliding over my thrift store jacket. "You're sweet," she said, voice dipped in honey and battery acid. "But men like Marcus, they go back to their world. Don't get comfortable." I smiled like Midwestern waitresses smile at rude customers' gentle, unbothered nuclear. "No worries," I said. "I've never been comfortable." At his office, they weren't subtle either. His CFO, silver hair, colder eyes caught me in the lobby after I dropped off forms for a caregiver grant Marcus found. "Mr. Hale has a busy quarter," he said, like I'd asked for his calendar. "Don't distract him." "I'm not a calendar hold," I said, and walked out before he could finish the lecture he'd practiced on other women. Marcus apologized later, not for them, but for the world they think is normal. That mattered. He helped without strings. He set up a meeting with a clinic that took my mom into a program we didn't know existed. He slid a folder across our wobbly kitchen table applications for a state fund. Steps highlighted sticky notes where my handwriting would go. I should have asked why before I asked for anything he said. "I'm sorry." I went back to school nursing for now, maybe more later, helped by a scholarship from someone who refused to be named. He never mentioned it. He didn't use help like a lever. He just showed up. Sometimes he sat through my study marathons pretending to read while snoring through chapter 3, and I'd throw a sock at him and whisper, "Billionaires are terrible at pharmacology." Only the top 1% or he'd mumble, eyes closed, and we'd both laugh quietly so we didn't wake my mom. A year after that first night, the city was soft and gold leaves, doing that thing where they let go like champions. He told me to dress nice, picked me up at 6, drove up Crestmont Ridge and parked where the skyline makes you feel both tiny and safe. There was a table, nothing dramatic, just candles in jars. My favorite song low on a little speaker, Jasmine in the air like a memory. "We did this," he said, and his voice had a tremor I'd never heard. "You and me. From surviving to living." I reached for his hand and he pulled away just long enough to stand. He circled the table, knelt no velvet box, no production, and held out a simple gold band with a thin vine etched around it. Jasmine. My mom's favorite flower. "I'm not offering money," he said, steady now. "I'm offering me. No pressure, no promises I can't keep, just me. Are you sure you want this?" Same words. Whole new world. I dropped to my knees because standing felt impossible, touched his face like I was memorizing new geography, and said yes, laughing and crying and not caring that my makeup was done for. We kissed, not like people looking for rescue, but like people who had built a bridge plank by plank and met in the middle. We kept the wedding small. My mom walked me to the aisle and cried for the first time in a year from something other than fear. He stood up at the reception with no notes and said, "I didn't know what love meant until it cost me something. I thought I needed my pride, my stories about myself. If losing those is the toll for getting to her, I'll pay it every day." When it was my turn, I didn't try to be poetic. I just told the truth. I said I thought I needed saving, and it turns out I needed space and respect and someone to ask me at the right time, the right way, "Are you sure you want this?" and then honor the answer. That's not the end, not really. Because here's the part people argue about when I tell it straight. Was that first night unforgivable? Or was it two people trying to breathe at the same time underwater, doing the best they could with the choices they believed they had? I don't know if there's a clean answer. I only know what we did after and how we did it. Slow, honest, with mistakes and apologies and coffee that still tastes like battery acid. You've heard my side now. Tell me yours, drop a comment. Argue with me. Call out what you think was wrong, what you think was fair. The times you've seen money bend a story or mercy straighten it back out. Like, subscribe, share this with the one friend who swears people never change, and then tell me what you've seen change when someone finally chooses differently.